is hardly innocent. She's down in the dirt with me, whether she likes it or not.
According to claims from those who have watched this saga up close, Meghan Markle may have walked into the royal world not as a bride, but as a woman with a mission that started long before she ever knew Harry. A mission that may have been shaped by someone she never even met, Princess Diana. Because the story you're about to hear isn't just a love story. This is a story about timing, about identity, about a prince who was vulnerable, and a woman who allegedly knew exactly how to use that vulnerability to her advantage. So today we go back to the beginning, before Meghan, before the wedding, before the headlines, into the part of the story no one was supposed to see, the planning stage. Long before Harry ever noticed Meghan, long before the royal engagement, long before the world knew her name, there was Princess Diana, the most photographed woman on earth. She was adored, admired, and remembered as the people's princess. And according to repeated claims and observations, Meghan didn't just admire Diana, she studied her. Not casually, not lightly, but intensely. Sources describe it as years, possibly decades, of watching Diana's interviews, her gestures, her body language, and even her emotional presence. The way Diana looked shyly toward the camera, the way she blinked softly, almost like she was fragile and gentle, the way she touched her chest when she spoke, the way she laughed in a soft, innocent tone. These weren't random details, they were patterns. And according to the claims, Meghan absorbed them like a script. What makes this even more disturbing is that there's no sign of these behaviours in her earlier public appearances. In her suits, interviews, her deal or no deal moments, and her early red carpet clips, none of the Diana-like mannerisms were there. No Bambi eyes, no shy blinking, no soft giggle. It was a completely different woman. But the moment Meghan entered Harry's orbit, everything changed. And if this was just inspiration, fine. But the timing, the intensity, and the suddenness suggest something far more calculated. A study, a blueprint, a role she was preparing to play. And the role was Princess Diana. For years, this study seemed distant, just fascination. But then came the turning point, the moment Meghan realised she had a real path into the royal world. A moment tied to one person, Prince Harry, the prince who had lost his mother tragically, the prince who grew up wounded by the world's attention. The prince described by insiders as emotionally damaged and deeply vulnerable. And according to claims, that is when Meghan allegedly shifted gears. The study phase ended and the execution began. She didn't just reach out to a prince, she reached out to the right prince, the one whose emotional scars made him easier to bond with, easier to influence, and easier to pull close. This wasn't a random romance, it was a moment of opportunity. Those close to the situation suggest Meghan saw Harry's pain as an opening. His grief, his insecurity, his lifelong search for someone who understood him. And allegedly, she positioned herself as that person, not by accident, but by strategy. And from that point on, her behaviour began aligning with Diana's image almost perfectly, as if she knew exactly what would touch Harry's heart. This was no longer admiration. This was a plan moving into action. By the time Meghan stepped fully into Harry's life, the pieces were already aligned in a way that seemed almost too perfect. On one side was Meghan, someone who had spent years on sets, learning scripts, mastering expressions, and understanding how to present emotion on cue. Acting wasn't just her job, it was her skill set, her toolkit, her training. On the other side was Harry, a man who had lived through trauma most people can't imagine. He lost his mother at just 12 years old. He grew up inside a spotlight he never asked for. He battled pressure, grief, and loneliness. And according to royal observers, he carried deep emotional wounds that never fully healed. This combination wasn't balanced. It was lopsided. She had performance experience. He had emotional vulnerability. She knew how to adapt her persona. He was searching for comfort and validation. And according to claims from those who watched their early dynamic, Meghan didn't just enter his world. She filled a void. She spoke softly. She acted understanding. She mirrored emotions. She became what Harry needed at that fragile moment. Not by accident, but with precision. As one insider put it, Harry wasn't just falling in love. He was falling into a role Meghan had already prepared. In his eyes, she seemed caring, supportive, gentle, maybe even similar to the warmth he once saw in his mother. But in her eyes, according to the claims, this connection was power. Because once you win someone's emotions, you win their choices. And that's where the story turns. As the relationship deepened, something began to shift quietly at first, then more noticeably. Harry, once known for his humor, independence, and bold personality, seemed to fade into the background. According to sources familiar with their dynamic, he started doing only what Meghan wanted. He appeared more silent, more cautious, more compliant. Little by little, his world shrank to her world. There were claims that Meghan directed how he behaved, where he went, and even how he interacted in public. Observers pointed out chilling moments like Meghan physically guiding Harry during a kiss, pulling him down to her timing and her angle, almost as if she were puppeteering the moment for the cameras. Small details, yes, but small details become big patterns. According to those close to the situation, Harry stopped asserting himself. He stopped making decisions independently. He stopped showing the personality he once had. It was as if the prince who grew up in the world's spotlight had become a quiet shadow beside her. And Meghan, she stood front and center. If she wanted him gone for a week, he left. If she wanted him beside her, he appeared. If she wanted him silent, he stayed silent. This wasn't partnership. This was direction. And the more she guided, the more he obeyed. The prince was no longer leading the story. He was following it. As Meghan's public image became harder to control, her relationship with the royal family took a darker turn. Instead of showing gratitude for the lavish wedding, the worldwide attention, and the royal platform, she began criticizing the very institution that elevated her. She complained about her $32 million wedding. She claimed she wasn't allowed her passport, even though records suggest she traveled multiple times during that period. She spoke harshly about members of the family, including the late Queen. It wasn't gentle disagreement, it was open attack. According to those watching closely, Meghan seemed less interested in protecting the monarchy and more interested in positioning herself against it as the misunderstood victim, the mistreated outsider, the heroine of her own story. Her behavior became destructive, dismissing traditions, breaking protocols, and ignoring expectations that every royal before her had respected. It was no longer imitation, it was rebellion. And as she pulled away from the royal family, she pulled Harry with her, away from his brother, away from his duties, away from the life he'd always known. The woman who once studied the royal world from afar was now tearing pieces of it down from the inside. Not quietly, not carefully, but boldly. The admiration of the crown had turned into opposition. The student had become the disruptor. And now we reach the part of the story that leaves the room silent. After years of studying Diana, after transforming her identity, after capturing Harry's heart, after claiming the title, after stepping into the spotlight, a haunting theory emerges, one whispered behind royal walls and echoed by those who watch the journey unfold. What if Harry was never the destination, but the doorway? Think about it. A damaged prince, a powerful title, a global platform, a name recognized in every country on earth. To the world, it looked like marriage, but to some, it looked like strategy. Because once Meghan secured the crown-adjacent life, once she became a duchess, once she gained fame, reach, and influence, Harry began to fade into the background. He stopped leading, he stopped speaking, he stopped shining, and Meghan stepped forward, more visible, more branded, more individually focused than ever before. It raises a final chilling possibility. Maybe the goal was never to love a prince, but to use a prince to climb, to rise, to replace, just like Diana once captivated the world. Meghan may have believed she could step into that same space, not as a successor, but as a new icon crafted and curated by her own design. But here's the twist. If Harry was the ladder, what happens once the top is reached? What happens when the prince who enabled the rise is no longer useful to the plan? Does he stay? Does he fall away? Does he become a forgotten chapter? No one knows yet because this story isn't over. The cracks are visible. The mask is slipping. The plan, if there ever was one, is entering a dangerous stage. And somewhere in the shadows of this royal tale, one question hangs heavier than all the rest. Was Harry the love of her life, or the greatest prop and the biggest performance the royal world has ever seen? And as the cameras keep rolling, the world waits because the final act may still be coming.